Very good one as we are going to begin game number 3 here. Jim Davis, blue-white control. Noah Lehman playing black-green devotion. We saw this a little bit earlier. Melissa DeTora playing blue-white control against black-green devotion. She got handled pretty well, and it seems like after sideboard, things are very tough for blue-white control.
For sure, unless there's a large conversion plan. And it looks like Jim's playing a much different build of blue-white control here.
Yeah, so this is what Jim has been writing about recently. If you follow his column every Thursday on Star City Games on the select side, you basically know that he's been experimenting very heavily with no detention sphere builds of this deck and planar cleansing and faded retribution builds. And this particular week on Star City, if you go back, after the match is over, he really talked about the gains and the losses of doing this. What happens when your opponent knows that you're playing planar cleansing, for example, how that changes things, and how you have to adjust your deck so heavily to be able to include this card. No banishing lights, no detention spheres. Do you put those cards in the sideboard? Who knows?
But it does give you a much better matchup against abrupt decay oriented decks, and you're seeing Jim play against one right now.
And we know how much those effects are running around standard right now. Charms, abrupt decays, deicides, all of that stuff. So Jim is 4-0 with this approach. The cards that he has in his deck: 2 Jace, Architect of Thought, 2 Elspeth, Sun's Champion, Aetherling, a lot of spells: Azorius Charm, Supreme Verdict, Sphinx Revelation, Divination, Dissolve. Those are all 4s, 3 Planar Cleansing, 2 Syncopate, 2 Last Breath, and a deicide. We'll get to the sideboard here in just a moment. You saw that Thoughtseize Resolve take away the Supreme Verdict here for Jim. He's going to play a Temple of Enlightenment, take a look at a Hollow Fountain, and that one's going to go to the bottom.
Yep. So this is a pretty natural evolution in my mind for blue-white control to take.
What I think is funny about this evolution is that I think a lot of people have been thinking about this and talking about this, but it's a huge step to make to say, you know what, Detention Sphere, I'm going to remove you from my deck. You have been so important to me over the past X months, but it's time to actually make that move. And again, I think the conversation is easy to have. We've had the conversation before, but actually playing the games and trying to figure out and mold the deck, that's a lot of work, because this is a big change to the deck.
It was pretty much the first thing that I talked about when Abrupt Decay was prevalent and started writing articles about Standard was, is this going to be a set that people take because Detention Sphere and Banishing Light gets so much worse in this world? Here we are a month later where it seems like that's starting to happen, but it's still tough to pull the trigger.
Jace is going to show you a Divination, a Supreme Verdict, and a Sphinx's Revelation. Best of luck splitting those, Noah. You see, also the problem here for Noah is that he does not have a third land. Now, one thing I actually do like about Jim's deck, again, is Divination here. 4 copies of that. Great against mono black.
Yes.
You just want cards. It's not so much about card selection. It's more about card density. And that's what Divination provides.
They're trying to run you out of total resources, so all you need to do is keep your head above water there.
An Overgrown Tomb going to come into play on tap for Lehman. 3 mana. There's your Hero's Downfall. But Jim's already gotten his value off of that card.
And he has a Divination in hand that he's found, so Jim's got to be thrilled with how this game is pacing so far.
Aetherling has been picked up here for Jim as well. Makes you wonder if he wants to divinate or leave up mana for Revelation. Looks like he's going to divinate here. Get a couple cards deeper into his deck. So hit 1 is Jace. Hit 2 is an Island. And, I talked to Jim a decent amount. Obviously we worked together some because of the articles and all that stuff. But, just when he was kicking around this idea of doing this, and I'm like, it seems like you're the first person to really pull the trigger. I know Adrian has talked about it as well. And he's like, yeah, it's been kind of a bumpy road. Trying to figure out exactly what you're supposed to do and how opponents react to this. Of course, people leave in their abrupt decays and they bring in Golgari Charms and stuff like that. And Charm is still pretty good. Right. Against this deck because of Verdict, but the fact that these blue-white decks lean so heavily on Banishing Light and they lean so heavily on Detention Sphere, to not have to lean on that, you have to change the way that you play, and also your opponents may not be able to adjust appropriately. Here's a Jace.
And certainly, there's, even though he doesn't have access to Detention Sphere, he still has cards like Last Breath and Azorius Charm that can handle attackers intermittently. So he can take a lot of the sting out of Golgari Charm's Regeneration Clause by fighting creatures in different ways.
Picked up a copy of Reprisal off of that Jace activation. Just a one of. That's a card I'm surprised not getting more play with how big these Jund monsters and Naya decks are.
It's pretty expensive for the mana cost it's on the higher side.
Yeah.
But still a fine removal spell.
So Lehman with 5 mana in play. Going to use some of this right now. And there's connections again. We saw a deicide from Davis a little bit earlier. He has one of those. But again, that's not that big of a deal when you have copies of Planar Cleansing in your deck. Now, Jim doesn't have one in his hand just yet. He'll take a draw here. Picks up a Plains. It makes you curious if he's happy slamming down maybe Aetherling right now. There's some potential for that.
Seems like a good spot. Again, how much removal can Noah really have left in his deck at this point?
Yeah.
He needs two pieces of it, and that's only for him to continue to be allowed to play the game.
Also, that would be likely his entire turn.
Yeah. I mean, Jim can play it really safe and wait one more turn, but if he doesn't have a counterspell, the Aetheling's at risk of getting thought seized. And so this is a pretty good spot, I think, to play Aetheling if you don't have a counter in your hand. I could see if you have a dissolve, maybe you wait one more turn, but
Decisions here for the blue-white control player. Definitely going to be someone to follow over the course of this tournament again, because no spheres, no banishing lights.
And here at 4-0 and a pretty commanding position here in game 3.
Gonna mill over a Gray Merchant, pick up another land. Gonna play an island. Will he slam down Aetheling this turn or just wait? You know, the difficulty with waiting, of course, is, especially for how long his turn has been, if Noah draws a Thoughtseize, he's firing it right away.
Yeah, for
Not
sure.
even gonna wait. And Jim only has one Aetheling in his main deck.
I see this spot all the time with blue-white control players where, you know, they're trying to wait on the Aetheling because they're worried, what if they had 2 removal spells? I've never seen someone in the post-board games with even 2 removal spells in their deck, much less in hand at the time, you know?
Yeah. You know, for me in that situation, and just kind of the way that I play Magic, which I do admit, it's just, I slam Aetheling with an island, I just make my opponent have it.
Yeah.
You know, that's just the way I like to play. And I'm not saying that's correct. It's just, either you have it or you don't, man.
It's not even just have it. They have to have 2
You
of
have
it.
to have them,
Yeah.
as it were. Here's a Revelation, which, is certainly a pretty good play as well if you're not going to cast Aetheling. The other thing, too, is that, if Jim draws an island for this turn or just a land or whatever, I think he'd be much more confident to say, all right, I'll play Aetheling with 2 islands up. Now there's almost no chance it's dying.
Sure, yeah. I mean, he plays it a little bit safe by doing it this way, but there is some risk of giving Noah a lot of time here in the face of the connections that's now in play.
Jace, take it up. Mill swap, draw a copy of Deicide. This looks like it might be the new evolution of blue-white control. I am very interested.
Yeah, like you said, we've been theory crafting this deck for a while. This is the first time we've really seen it in action.
And it's funny, too, because you use the term we. I think it's more of like the royal we. I feel like the Magic community has been theory crafting this deck for some time. Just say Aetheling's going to resolve here. But I feel like, there's all this talk about, we should try this. This seems like a good idea. And then when it's like time to sleeve up the deck or, fire up Magic on, it's like,
no chance.
No, I'm good. These spheres so good. I'm good.
I'm not playing it.
Yeah, it's just not going to happen. Don't want to pull the trigger.
I take it all back.
You've got a player pulling the trigger and off to a beautiful start here. 4-0, game 3, and in a very, very nice position. That Nightveil Spectre is a little worrisome.
It's a dangerous card. But Jason play is also quite dangerous, as is the Aetheling, so it's not, the resource advantage definitely comfortably with Jim right now.
Jason really underplayed this version of Memory Adept here.
Yeah.
He's a Nightveil Spectre is going to get into that. We haven't seen a lot of that card as it goes down to 5 counters.
And Jim's got to be thrilled with Noah using a turn that way.
Desecration Demon here. Already has the answer at the ready in Reprisal. Might have to have old Jim sit down in the sideboard with Shroud. See how this has been working for him. It's just really, you don't see something like this very often.
No. And clearly building a deck like this requires a ton of work.
Yeah. The other thing, too, is I wonder what kind of edge, Jim has gotten over the course of this tournament of people, I have decays in my deck. I'm boarding in charms. I'm boarding in, the various other ways to take care of enchantments. And it's just like, none of that stuff exists.
Oh, for sure.
Yep.
I mean, if you've ever played, if he ever plays the card Planar Cleansing, then the jig is kind of up.
But can people adjust? I think is the question, too. Here's a Deicide. Going to take care of, looks like the Underworld connections. We might get an activation here from Noah in just a second. And we will. Oh, maybe we won't. Okay. They've even got mana for maybe a removal spell here. Oh, we might see an activation.
Maybe Golgari Charm?
Possible. Could be quite useful.
It's a lot of information there.
Island is where Jim will start now. Seems to slide that island back maybe for an Aetherling activation. Going to manage his resources. He's pretty far ahead right now. 24 life, Aetherling in play. Now it's all about just closing out the game now, I think, at this point.
There's still some pretty hairy things that can happen from here.
There's Supreme Verdict. Yeah, this is probably a charm, right? Yeah. Had a feeling this might be the case.
Stands to reason, given that he did not activate that connections there.
Yeah, and you have to imagine, too, that I just have to make my way through the turn, like through this part of the game, right?
Yeah.
Like you're going to have your charm for a while, and Revelation picked up here for Jim. Aetheling's going to come back, pass the turn back.
But this is still pretty dangerous territory. Noah's board's starting to get pretty developed here, and now gray merchants start to become a concern. I mean, Jim's still in a commanding position here, don't get me wrong, but it is getting a little dicey.
4, 5, 6, 7, 9 lands in play for Davis. Let's see where Noah wants to go with these creatures. We saw him attack Jace last time. Let's see if he wants to go towards Jace this time. And the answer is no, just a shoulder shrug, and Davis says, all right, I'll take 8. Down to 16, trigger. Take a look. Azorius Charm. That one doesn't matter too much. Now, there's another copy of Desecration Demon. All right, I'm with you. Things are starting to get a little more difficult now.
Yeah.
Especially if there's another Golgari Charm over there. You know, if Jim does find his way into a Supreme Verdict, for example.
And Jim has made a lot of concessions in the way that he's been using his mana here to try to play around a removal spell in Noah's hand. At what point does he just say he doesn't have Devour Flesh left in his deck anymore and start tapping out?
Oh, there's Reprisal. Take care of the demon. You saw Davis lower the shields for Aetherling.
Yeah.
And now, I think now I'm with you, where I think he realizes, okay, there's no way you have removal in your deck. And if you do have removal, it's either Charm or Abrupt Decay. Mm-hmm. Really nice draw there, Celestial Flare.
Yeah, just little cheap ways of breaking up whatever Noah has left over is really all that Jim cares about finding at this point.
There's a Plains for the turn. Going to reorganize the mana a little bit here. See how much he can hit with Aetherling, maybe. Wants to allocate his resources appropriately. He does have Last Breath and Flare in his hand, so that'll likely be, the turn for the 2 attackers.
Yeah.
You have to imagine. Here comes Aetherling. Maybe trying to figure out exactly how much to pump. So he would want to go, if he pumps 3 times, that's an attack for 8, puts him down to 9, so I think he wants to go. He can go. Can you do it? Yeah, he can't do it in 2 turns. It'll have to be 3.
And all these Celestial Flares and Azorius Charms in Jim's build now, we see a lot of lists that go to 2 Azorius Charms, maybe even 0 sometimes. I think it's really important to be playing these cards alongside Divinations because it leads to turns where you're allowed to draw cards and cheaply break serve. So it's just all about being able to cheaply break serve once you have all this card drawing in your deck. So Jim has made a lot of card selections in his deck that are towards that end.
Take a look at the graveyard. I think both players want to take a look.
But things are going to get really rough for Noah this turn, I think, if he starts just firing in some attacks.
Yeah, I think that's the case. But, I mean, what choice does he have, right?
Oh, yeah, he can't. I mean, he can't sit back on defense, certainly, so.
Aetherling doesn't really allow that behavior. So Noah taking a look at his hand here. He's got a Nightfell Spectre and some other options over there in his hand. I wouldn't be surprised if his turn just starts by attacking and going from there and seeing what happens.
Well, attacking is never quite safe against blue-white control because of the risk of Celestial Flares and Azorius Charms and so forth. So to some extent, he has to start casting stuff before combat, and that's dangerous too. Gives Jim a lot more information on what to work with.
Nightfall Spectre pre-combat. So you see, again, Davis with the Last Breath in his hand says, I'm going to get rid of that. Assuming that's okay with you, which it is. And that'll get exiled. And now, there is a Azorius Charm, it looks like, to the Desecration Demon.
And that's the turn.
Nightfall Spectre should be exiled.
Now Jim has firm control of the game.
When I tell you that, tell the spotter to get exiled.
Now Jim with Aetherling on a essentially uncontested board. Should not be hard to wrap up the game from here.
See, that's where I would have liked to lead. I want to lead with the Thoughtseize there. To see exactly how I'm supposed to navigate the turn.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if Lehman had a copy of Thoughtseize in his hand, but he did, and I would have preferred to see everything start with Thoughtseize and then taking his turn from there.
I don't think it would have mattered too much here because I don't even think Jim bothers casting the Sphinx's Revelation. I think he says to Noah, all right, you can take that if you want to. Try to slog through all these combat turns.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
I agree in principle. He's better served there doing it the way you're describing.
the Rev bites the dust, but the Rev is the important card now. The important card is the 4 or 5 creature.
Yeah.
So mana going to get tapped here. There's a divination. Hit 1 and 2. Just 2 lands there for Davis. See how he wants to use Jace here. Going to organize all these lands yet again.
And he's pretty confident for this point that his Aetherling is just, it's not getting opposed. He put his shields down momentarily. Noah had no way to punish him, and now it requires Pithy Needle plus a way to punish him, and who knows if either of those cards are even available in his list.
The other thing I thought that was important too is he put the shields down when there was only 2 mana available, not 3.
Yeah.
So didn't put the shields down when Hero's Downfall was available.
Right.
I think that's really important too. Here comes Aetherling. Time for a little pump. Looks like it's going to be 4. So attack here for 8. Is that okay? This is going to be a charm. So this is going to force Jim to now go, instead of +1, -1, -1, +1.
Yeah, get up to a 7-2 here.
Yep.
Still has lethal next turn, not a big deal.
So some damage will be dealt. You see both players shrug their shoulders, mark their life pads.
You can see Jim's build just does really, really great work at fighting the Golgari charm.
Yeah, that's one of the things I like about it as well. Really good against Propagate, really good against Golgari charm. A lot of people look at Golgari charm as the best charm right now.
Yeah.
You saw Jim leave Azorius charm on top of his deck, which is another play that I like simply because there's an Nightveil Spectre on the table. So if you like a card, you get this one that is uncastable and one that Jim certainly does not need right now.
Right.
The other thing that you may have noticed as well is that Jim actually targeted himself with his Jace because he knew the card that was on top of Noah Lehman's deck, which was Desecration Demon, he put back from Azorius charm, so no reason to mill that. You can draw that, I don't care.
A lot of little subtleties.
Yeah. This is going to be a Grey Merchant. So this is going to gain Lehman 5 life. Going to knock Davis down to 9. So Davis has got to slog through. It looks like one more turn here. Unless he's able to open up that Mutavault to clear the way.
That's a pretty tough thing to do also because...
Oh, actually, that's not even going to get it done.
Yeah.
It's 10, sorry. I thought it was going up to 10, but it'd only be 10 damage. There's a Jace.
And yeah, you can see Jim again separating mana is just likely to be a turn of something along the lines of make my Aetherling unblockable, hit you for some damage, blink out my Aetherling, Supreme Verdict, etc.
Yep. Figure out how I want to use my Jace. Mill your top card, take a draw, Sphinx's Revelation. That might make things easier.
I don't even think Jim needs to bother with that. Just do this.
Yeah, get it for 8. Maybe see a blink out. There that goes. See a Verdict. There that goes. Take care of those creatures. Ling is going to come back. And a little bit of shortcutting here. Davis hasn't played a land just yet. Yeah, because when Aetherling comes back, it's the last thing of the turn, so you can't play a land at that point. So it may have moved a little bit too quickly there, but I don't think it's going to be the end of the world here for Davis, and that's going to do it. Jim Davis is going to win this match over Noah Lehman. 2-1, blue-white control, an innovative take. Takes down Black-Green Devotion, 2-1. We saw Datora a little bit earlier in the tournament lose to Black-Green Devotion pretty easily, but her build was pretty standard, where this build by Davis is anything but.
Yeah, maybe Jim's paying some costs in the Jund Monsters matchup and such, not having his Attention Spheres, although even then, those things are starting to move to Abrupt Decay to the main deck, but certainly against Black-Green Devotion, his matchup is significantly better.